Divine Intervention is a curious card. Divine Intervention is an enchantment that costs 6 and 2 white mana. It enters the battlefield with 2 intervention counters on it, and during your upkeep you remove an intervention counter from Divine Intervention, and when there are no intervention counters on Divine Intervention, then the game ends in a draw. How anticlimactic. So, Divine Intervention is a pretty stupid card, in my opinion. It's one of only a few cards that ends the game in a draw. And as far as I know, it's the only card that intends to end the game in a draw. It probably inspired the creation of Celestial Convergence, a card that also removes counters, but the draw only happens if both players have an equal amount of life when the final counter is removed. So the point of that card is to turn life gain into a win condition. The point of Divine Intervention is more confusing. It's likely that this card was created as a way of dealing with ante, since you could theoretically use this to draw a game with a valuable ante card so that you don't lose your ante card. But there are some problems with that. It does cost 8 mana, and you have to go through 2 turns in order to achieve this goal. In most situations where that is possible, it's likely you could have just won the game instead. And even in situations where winning the game isn't possible, it's unlikely that you'll find yourself in a situation where Divine Intervention will actually work. Assuming the card was designed with a purpose other than just throwing stuff at the wall, the only other real use I could see of the card is to gamify tournaments. Now, to be clear, I don't think this is why they designed the card. It's just another possible use case of it. If you win game 1 and manage to ramp this out and control your opponent, you can force a draw on games 2 and 3 and get the win. But that isn't what I would call a consistent plan. And it's also not without its downsides. Because, obviously it depends on the tournament, but in most situations your rating would be better if you just won 2 games. Overall, this card is not strong, which is a really good thing because if this card was efficient, it would just make the game worse. I will say the flavor is pretty interesting, and it was created during the Wild West of design, and I don't think it was the dumbest thing in the world to experiment with this design space, but it is not a healthy card in my opinion. The card was never viewed as healthy by the tournament organizers either, as it was banned in August of 1994, which is pretty quick since it was released in June of 1994. In a hilarious turn of events, it would be unbanned from Vintage and Legacy at the same time as Scheherazade in September of 1999. Scheherazade would eventually be rebanned, but Divine Intervention is still legal in Vintage and Legacy to this day. And that's probably because the card costs a lot of mana, doesn't do anything, and is not worth playing for any reason other than trolling. This card is not ideal design space, but it also sucks, so it's not like it's the most egregious card of all time, not by a long shot. And it is interesting to see what weird design spaces they were willing to explore in the early days. And I do think that this courage brought us more excellent and interesting designs than it brought us bad ones like this, so I do think the trade-off was worth it. And I did feel that even though this card isn't that great, and it's kind of ruinous, and kind of a bad idea, that it was at least interesting enough to discuss. I don't really have anything else to say about it though, so let's talk about the art and call this video done. There is only one printing of this card, though it did make it into Magic Online, which is pretty funny. This was illustrated by Amy Weber, and the art goes hard as hell. This is a really cool design, and the art is pretty solid. Amy Weber has some pretty interesting pieces, but a lot of them aren't what I would call the best art Magic has to offer. This piece, however, I think is very solid if you're into this art style, and I personally enjoy it very much. It's far from the most iconic arts in the game, obviously, but I do have a soft spot for stuff like this. I guess I don't have that much to say about this card, so I guess that's the end of the video. You can like the video if you liked it. You can subscribe if you give a shit, but either way, I hope you have a magical day. Thanks for watching.